Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, actress Nika King, who plays a pastor's wife in Sound of Hope, the Story of Possum Trot, joins us to talk about her powerful, real-life story about adoption and foster care and why she is so passionate about her role in the film. Here is Nika King. You star in Sound of Hope, the Story of Possum Trot, and this film is incredibly powerful. What was it that drew you to the script?
As an actor, you're always looking for projects that, for me, tell a story, amplify light. And so I was immediately drawn to the script. It's my mom's story. She was fostered by a pastor and his wife. And I knew I had to be in this film some kind of way. And when I met with Joshua and Rebecca, the writer, director, producers, I was like, okay, I was giving it my all, like, okay, like me. And then it kind of went away and then it came back and they wanted me to play the sister role. And I was still saying, yes, I want to be in this movie some kind of way anyway. And then by the time I got off the plane and drove to Macon to check into my hotel, I was the leading lady. I was cast as First Lady Donna Martin. And I was just so happy I said yes. To all the way through, I said yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you went in thinking you were going to have a totally different role, and then you end up leading. How shocking was that? How jolting is that? Because I would imagine as an actor, you go and you prepare for a particular role, and suddenly, and you did a wonderful job, you're thrust into that main role. What was that like to find out?
Well, it's more lines, that's for sure. It's more, creating and I don't want to say creating a character because First Lady Donna Martin is a real person that's still alive and thriving. But now it's more work, right? And so I had to really kind of like turn everything, turn off my phone, get super focused. And just because I wanted to do well and I wanted to serve this film because I knew the message was so important and I couldn't allow anything to get in the way.
Well, yeah, and this movie, for those who don't know, it's about these 22 families in this church in this small town in Texas who adopt 77 children. And you mentioned your mom and her story. Let's talk a little bit about that because, man, what a role to take on in light of that personal connection and personal history. What's your mom's story?
So my mom never knew her mother. Her mother was murdered. It's still a cold case. We don't know who did it. And she ended up being in foster care with my three uncles. And initially, the pastor's wife, Mother White, she wanted to adopt a daughter, but the judge said, no, I'm not going to separate them. They've already been through too much. If you adopt her, you have to adopt all of them. And so that's how they became adopted by Pastor White and her husband. And it kind of unfolded just like this movie, the ups and downs of being traumatized, being left alone, kind of to fend for yourself. And my mom had her own journey. She ran away at 15, then she became addicted to drugs. And tomorrow, July 4th, is actually her sober date.
Wow.
July 4th, she'll be, I think, 31 years clean.
Wow, that is incredible. And, that journey, the movie really shows, and I think this is important because people have assumptions that things are going to be easy. This is not always an easy process. That doesn't mean it's not an amazing process and we all need to engage in it and do it. But I love the fact that the movie was really honest about those struggles that come both for the families engaging in adoption and for the children. Was that for you, how did that change you, I guess? Maybe, obviously, you have family experience, your mom's story, but sort of preparing for a role where you're really showing people the ins and outs of that. How did that impact you?
I think it's important when you're telling a true story, you have to show the bad parts, right? Because then it makes the good parts even better, and it makes it more realistic, because the reality is a lot of these kids are coming from horrible situations. And so if you're thinking about adopting or fostering or being a respite parent, you want to see those things. You don't want the blinders on, because God has a way of kind of using pain to kind of push you into your purpose. And I think for me, that's what this movie has done through my career and in my personal life.
I just keep thinking about your mom's story and what are the odds that you would end up being in a film where you're leading as a pastor's wife. I mean, it mirrors your mother's story in so many ways. I would imagine that's not lost on you as you reflect on this experience, and maybe even how God prepared you for a role you never even knew you were going to have.
Exactly. Everything that I've gone through has prepared me for this moment. God don't waste nothing. He uses everything down to the last drop. And I'm so grateful that I was obedient, right? Because as an artist and an actor, you want the number one spot, or you want to be in the lead position. And sometimes God is saying, just let me work out the details behind the scenes. You just keep saying yes. And for me, seeing my mom's story right there on the big screen, it was surreal, and it just made my heart so full, because in reality, she broke a generational curse, because we could have easily ended up in foster care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and being able to reflect on that, another thing that I thought was so incredible about the movie was the way faith was handled. Very often, faith is not represented well in films, both in Hollywood in general and even in the faith space. Sometimes it's not really done well. This movie, I felt the way that you all showed church and connection and family. And when I say family, I mean the family of the church, as a body, was really compelling and very accurate in so many ways. What was that like for you? Coming in, obviously you've mentioned God, you're a person of faith. I assume here, what was it like to be able to sort of portray that in such an authentic sense?
Let me just tell you, I've never been in a project where I get to say Jesus and it's not a curse word or slander. It's really giving him reverence. It's giving reverence to the Holy Spirit, and it was so captivating, because there were times and scenes where the Spirit was, it was in the room, and they would yell cut. And I'm like, you can't cut on this, this is not something you just reset back to one. This is the Spirit of God moving, not only in our performances, in our words, and in our thoughts, and in the messaging, because this film is meant to really fix this problem that we have in this country with 400,000 kids being in foster care. So this is a God movement, and that didn't fall short on me. I was definitely, there were times where I had to tell Joshua, like, I'm sorry, like we can't cut. He's like, as a filmmaker, you got to make your day. And he's like looking like, but God is always in the middle, and he's always showed himself to use everything in my life to kind of prepare me for this moment.
How did you first come to faith? Did you grow up with them, and what was that journey for you?
Well, my mom was adopted by a pastor, so we were in church 3-4 days a week. And, most of the times when my mom wasn't around and she was out in the streets and stuff like that, there was always people taking us to church. And it was 6 of us. So, we it was a lot of us. And so I'm so happy that I had that foundation. And, sometimes you stray and you kind of, go to the left. God had to bring you back. And I'm so glad I'm able to just be a part of a faith-based film, and also have that real connection with God, because it only makes the project more powerful, and it makes my purpose more cemented in what God has called me to do.
Do you see yourself doing more movies along this sort of line, the family-friendly faith, sort of genre?
Of course. I came from a world of Euphoria, very different, but then very similar, right? Still dealing with young people who are lost, who are seeking for something. And I think right now, God is showing me that you can actually do my work and still be successful. So yeah, I want to do comedy. I want to do drama. I want to do action, but all under the auspice of God being the central focus, and not losing that ability to shine as well as give God glory.
So my final question for you, obviously the film Sound of Hope, The Story of Possum Trot, by the time people see this, the film's out there and people are going to be impacted. I know theaters are selling out. What is your biggest hope for the impact of this film?
Sound of Hope. I mean, it's in the title. For me, that sounds like people engaging in this crisis that we have in this country by adopting, by fostering, by being a big brother or big sister to someone, by taking, a young person out to dinner and exposing them to things. It's just being conscious about what's happening in our country, and having a heart for kids. That's my prayer, that people are called to action. And it's more than just a movie. It's really a movement, and a movement of God, and a movement of God's people to basically come to the task, and let's try to get these kids into safe homes.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time again. It's Sound of Hope, The Story of Possum Trot. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. God bless.
That's all for today's Newsmakers podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the show, and also head over to the CBN News YouTube channel and the CBN News channel to watch Newsmakers every week. We'll see you soon.